Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. It is the 13th of November, year 2024. Welcome. I hope everyone is having great fall weather here in the United States. We just finished the elections, so it was like a huge thing 2 weeks back. And we have a new president now. And for the next 4 years, we're going to have a change of leadership. So it's going to be good. And let me welcome the panel. We have April back. April is a channel, a medium. She's been a session leader in our workshops. She does a lot of, I think I absolutely love the meditations you lead, April, during the workshops, as well as there's a lot about learning about how to know your true self, right? You talk a lot about, you try and like structure your session around learning about your true self. So I love those sessions. So maybe next year we'll have some more workshops, and then we'll have our session leaders back. And then let me welcome the next person, which is Lakshmi. Lakshmi also has led workshop sessions. She joins our group meditations. Good evening, Lakshmi. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for joining, April. And then Patricia is part of our core group of meditators. Good evening, Patricia. I do have the Gene Keys book, but I'll start off with a question with April. I noticed in our group, April, somebody had posted a question that they had been, I'm going to paraphrase this question. It may not be exact. They said that they were able to, I think, get over their smoking addiction very easily, like cold turkey and maybe even social drinking that they had. But right now they are experiencing sugar addiction, and she or he was asking, how do we get over the sugar addiction? So I want to talk about addiction in general, because there are aspects to it that Patricia and I can shed some light on. But you want to, I know it's your forte, right?
That's what I do for a living. Yeah.
So you want to talk about why the sugar addiction is so addictive, or why do we need that
Well,
dopamine hit?
yeah. Well, dopamine is very important, and it plays a huge role in addiction. But one of the things in particular is alcohol. When it goes into the body, alcohol turns into sugar. So if you are drinking every day or a lot, or even a couple drinks every day, and you stop drinking, your body wants to know where its sugar's at. So you will be craving candy, cake, sweets. So that would be why that they're craving the sugar. I have many people that that's a huge, it's part of what we call post-acute withdrawal syndrome. So it's PAWS, PAWS, post-acute withdrawal syndrome. It's one of the things that's on there. It'll tell you that if you're going through withdrawal, or you have just stopped drinking alcohol, you will crave sugar and sweets. It's also about wanting like the instant rush, like the pick me up, the energy. As your body's trying to heal, your cells are trying to heal and go back to normal. They're tired. They're working. Your body is working on detoxing. It's working on getting better. It's working on going back to normal. So we want sugar. And that can be in the form of cake or candy. It can be in the form of bread, potato chips, which carbohydrates turn into sugar in the body. So it's normal. What I find is that usually for most people, fades between 3 to 6 months. So when they first come in, they're coming in, they have pockets full of Skittles. And then usually over 3 to 6 months, they don't have it anymore. They don't crave it. So the human body is very, we can easily become addicted to things, and some people have more addictive traits than others. It is a genetic thing. It does tend to run in families. And then we can also look at like what we have talked about on here before of it being generational patterns and trying to, so if everyone in the family had an eating problem, or if there were several people in the family who had a drinking problem, it tends to generationally be passed down. So the thing is that if you give the body an addictive substance long enough, you'll create an addict. And it doesn't really matter who you are. Addiction doesn't care about your gender or your race or your status or your money, your job. It doesn't care because it's a biological thing. So we take guinea pigs and we put them in the labs and we give them addictive substances and we create addicts. This happens all day long, right? Guinea pigs, mice. If you give this type of body an addictive substance, you'll create an addiction. The thing about the addiction, though, is that while it can run in families and it can be a coping, like how families cope, what happens is very quickly it does alter the chemicals in the body and it does alter the brain. And so then whenever you have any sort of emotional discomfort, from that point forward, your brain and your body says, you know what, why don't you just do that? Why don't you just drink? Or why don't we just go get some chocolate cake and then we'll be better? So we use it, addiction is used as a coping skill. So initially it starts out, maybe you're just trying it. Then the more that you take it or use it, you're creating the addiction. And then you're using it as an emotional coping skill. So it's a whole dynamic. It's a whole thing. So for what I would do is I would watch I would like to know how long they've had the sugar issue. And they probably didn't say in the post, right? No? Okay. So if you're recently sober, it's usually somewhere around 3 to 6 months that I see that fading away. Otherwise, then it would also, again, be another. So if you have what we call an addictive personality, then a lot of times what happens is your addiction will change form. So if you stop drinking alcohol, then you will become addicted to caffeine, or you'll become addicted to sweets, or you'll become addicted to working. Like, so it would require them to become more present, to become more aware, to be more connected with their body, with their thoughts and with their emotions. And then it would, the thing is teaching the body that you're okay, right? So when you go to have that extra, I don't know, ice cream or potato chips or cake or whatever, talking to yourself and saying, no, I don't actually need this. We don't actually need this. We're okay. You could go do meditation. You could breathe. You do many, many other things. So this is where I would start with this. This is kind of the beginning of it.
Eternally grateful, April. So sweet. Thank you so much for all the guidance and insight, and your expertise and knowledge, depth of knowledge shows in this arena. The one thing I wanted to say is, like I've heard Sadhguru talk about it. I think even Swami Chinmayananda talks about it. Like in Indian culture, right? There's a word called vasanas, which I found Sadhguru's explanation that we all, even if we didn't have this physical body, the soul or our essence has its own desires, or the words that Sadhguru uses is compulsions and tendencies. Like we are compulsive by design, right? And you rightly pointed out that, okay, if I take away the addiction to smoking, I take away the addiction to drinking, then that addiction is going to just, if there is not enough presence power, and that's why Eckhart so rightfully talks about presence power. If there's not enough presence power, that addiction will move into another addiction. It'll be sugar, it'll be food, it'll be sex, right? The addiction can be in so many different ways, right? Drug addiction, addiction to pharmacy. I mean, look at how much in America we talk about being addicted to prescription drugs, right? To drugs itself. Why is there that addiction? Because they chose not to be addicted in 2 or 3 different areas, but now that compulsion and tendency. So one thing that we need to realize is the fundamental aspect of the addiction is I am feeding a sense of lack and incompleteness, which you even talk about during your workshops. I feel a sense of lack and incompleteness, and let me fill this gap, this void in myself through this addiction. Is that not true?
Yeah.
The fundamental drive to go be compulsive is the sense of lack and incompleteness, right?
Yeah. So even if it's due to, let's say somebody may have ADHD, or maybe they have something else like that. And there are some people that the ADHD, now whether that's, heavy metal toxins or whatnot, like it tends to run in family. But even the ADHD, it's like they feel like they need something, they got to do something. It's that I'm not complete, I'm not calm, I'm not okay. But so either way, whether it is something that can be linked to biological or it is purely emotional or mental, it is always, I am not complete, I am not whole, something's wrong with me, I'm not worthy. It's always, I'm not worthy. Always. There's always somewhere along the line there was a sense of not being worthy or not being loved. It's very rare that I have a very few clients that I've ever had. So I've been doing this for 18 years now. I've had very few clients that they had zero issues, and they had, they had no self-worth issues. Very few. There's a handful, because there's always exceptions. But yeah, it is always to that. And it's always to, they think there's something wrong with them and they don't love themselves. Always. Some way, somehow. And they're always looking for some sort of approval from somebody else. Whether that is their grandma, their mom, their dad, some aunt, some friend, their partner. They're always looking for approval somewhere else. Always.
Beautiful. Thank you. And so the root fix or root cause, if you do root cause analysis, is we need to fix this sense of lack and incompleteness. And it's almost everything, any sickness that we have, any mental, psychological issue we have, everything has to deal with that fundamental fear that arises because from that sense of lack and incompleteness, you then are driven by these compulsions. And I love the word compulsions and tendencies that Sadhguru uses, right? It's compulsiveness towards food. Some people eat so much food. I can't even imagine eating that much quantity of food, right? Where does it go? But they just keep eating and eating. And some people like throw up, eat, people with bulimia, like throw up, eat, that wanting, trying to fix from something external, and the answer is never external, right? The
Yeah.
answer is an inward journey.
Yeah, the answer is never external. It's always reaching outside. So eating also creates a chemical, like you're saying, dopamine. There's other
Dopamine.
chemicals. There's other chemicals as well. So eating, they get some sense of relief while eating, but then after eating, they have tremendous guilt. But there is a chemical release from that. It just like with addiction, there's a chemical release. So yeah, it is always about they don't believe that they're enough somewhere along the lines. And here's the thing, like I think one of the keys for us to do as parents, you know, certainly I was not the most conscious parent. I mean, I was a parent at 16 years old, so is instead of us telling the child, asking the child, how do you feel about yourself? Do you feel good when you do this behavior? Does it feel good when you do that behavior? So that maybe we can teach them to quit looking to these adults for whether they're good or bad, right? And then they can, because that is such a huge problem that I still find literally today, that people are looking for the approval of others. And because they can't get it, they're sad. And because they're sad, then they go and they use or they do something. So I think that's where it needs to be changed. Is Guru talks about this too a little bit. And Eckhart, basically, that's part of his story, is quit looking outside and look within. I think that's where we need to start with our children. Changing that.
I think Eckhart says something like, stop looking for validation and scraps of fulfillment on the external, something along those lines in The Power of Now. Then the other thing, Dr. Joe Dispenza, he uses these words. He says, okay, now I've decided I have a sense of lacking in completeness, but I'm going to make a decision not to drink or not to have sugar. Dr. Joe says that the amplitude of the decision that we make needs to exceed or supersede the hardwired programs in our brain and the hardwired programs in our body. Because if you make a decision, I'm not going to eat sugar, but you have not worked on this, your body already is your subconscious mind. Your body is going to take you towards sugar. It's going to take you towards that chocolate cake that is in the fridge, or it's going to take you towards the tub of ice cream that is in the freezer, or it's going to take you to the sugar jar where you're just going to take 2 or 3 spoonfuls of sugar, right? So that amplitude of the decision that you make needs to exceed that hardwired programming in your brain that I need sugar. Sugar gives me, like, we need to tell ourselves. What it is every time we drink, every time we smoke, every time we eat food, it's called a dopamine hit. So it's almost is like a drug addiction. We get so addicted to the dopamine, like maybe we did $200 worth of shopping, retail therapy. Next time we do $500 worth of shopping. Next time we do $1,000. That's why so many families are in credit card debt, right? Over buying things that they don't need, and they keep buying because that's the superfluous, excessive dopamine hit, right? Your dopamine hit. The same thing with drugs. Somebody starts with like a little bit of, oh, let me do some mushrooms, let me do some marijuana, let me do some weed. Next minute they're doing cocaine. Next minute they're doing ecstasy. What's that? A fentanyl or something. Like it just keeps exceeding, and then you take a dose of fentanyl and it becomes like a lethal dose, right? You start off small, and then you just want to increase the dosage. Correct?
So
April?
cigarettes and weed are what we call gateway drugs. They're gateway drugs. So that means like it opens the door, it opens the gateway to other drug. Now, not everyone that smokes weed is going to end up using cocaine. That is not everyone's going to do that. However, they are gateway drugs. And the thing is that, and it's not just dopamine, it's other chemicals too, but it does flood the body with dopamine. Dopamine and addiction there's a huge connection with it. And the problem is that when you put a substance in the body, then the body says, oh, I don't need to make that anymore. So then your body has a crash. You have a crash. And then your body says, well, we don't feel good. We're feeling tired. We're feeling lethargic. We're just not feeling good. So you know what? I need to go. If I just go to the store and go shopping, or if I just play, this online slot game, or if I just go do this, I'll be okay. So
I forgot about gambling.
Yeah. So what addiction does, like for if it's cocaine and all these other drugs, it actually alters the human cells. But addiction does the same thing. So you have homeostasis. Homeostasis says I'm okay. Am I hot? Am I tired? Am I cold? Is something hurting? That's homeostasis. Your body is always working on that. Never stops. So middle of the night, you got a blanket. You don't know how you got it. It's because you got cold. The body never stops working on this homeostasis. When you have an addiction, your body, it gets added to your homeostasis. So your body will do its checks, but then it'll say, yeah, but we don't have that. Like, okay, we'll just go to the Goodwill. We'll just go to the Goodwill store, the thrift store, right? So it actually adds your addiction to your homeostasis. So your body now thinks that whatever your addiction is part of your being okay.
Perfect.
And until it gets that, your body and your mind think you're not okay. That's what happens in addiction. So it does tend to progress because the body will kind of plateau and it will need the next level to reach, right? Now you can create dopamine naturally. So the way to create dopamine naturally is it is rewarding yourself for small things that you do, and no matter how silly they seem. So getting up in the morning, it may sound really silly to be like, all right, I got up. But if you will do that, even though it seems totally ridiculous to be that's actually a dopamine hit. Of course, walking, exercising, these kinds of things, there's some foods, I don't know exactly which ones they are, that can increase dopamine. But so you get up in the morning, you get your shower, you get ready, you're almost ready to walk out the door. You saying, all right, I got ready, I'm almost there. That's a dopamine hit. So rewarding because what it does is it sends dopamine to the body because it's the reward chemical. And then it feels good. So your body then says, okay, do more, do something else. What else can we keep going with? We can keep going, we can keep moving. So that is a way, those are some ways to create dopamine naturally.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, April, for all the guidance, insights, and wisdom. Lakshmi, did you want to say something about this addiction?
I don't really have much to add to after what April talked. It is just so insightful. But I remember one of the talks with Joe Dispenza, the questionnaire asked him that although I have done so much of self-work, but I still go in the middle of the night to the fridge. Why am I not able to stop myself from doing that? Why am I still addicted to food in the middle of the night? So Joe Dispenza said, it's not the food that you're addicted to, you're addicted to the guilt. So once you look into that guilt, so then this also will stop. So what is that childhood pain that you are still addicted to is what one needs to go a little deep into that. Yeah. So yeah, thanks to April and thank you. It is really, really learning a lot from both of you. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lakshmi. Grateful. That's a beautiful insight, Lakshmi, that we may be, the addiction may be hiding, like wherever Eckhart says, right, wherever there's anger, there's pain. I think even with addiction, wherever there's addiction, there's pain. Would you all agree that there's pain? And I'm trying to cover that pain, that trauma,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. So the pain of guilt and shame is what we are trying to cover it using food. And most of the time, sugar is very addictive because I had read about a study. I don't know whether it is from Joe Dispenza's book or somebody else's book, that they took rats and then they fed them cocaine for like X number of days. And then afterwards, they fed them sugar for like X number of days. And after that, they put both cocaine and sugar in the same cage, and they wanted to test where the rats will go to, or they is in the experiment, all the rats went to the sugar, not to the cocaine. So showing that how addictive actually sugar is.
beautiful.
That is why in everything we see, whether it is spaghetti sauce or whatever we see in the market these days, they add a little bit of sugar in it because they want us to become a little addicted to their product. So it is so difficult sometimes to find products without any sugar because they want us to become addicted to sugar, and it is very easy to get
Beautiful.
addicted. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that pointer. You know, Lakshmi, long time back, I don't remember the name of the book. A neurologist or a neuroscientist had written a book, which they were discussing on NPR, this book, and I heard about it, and then I think I bought it and listened to it. I think it's Golden Compass or something, and this person was talking about how the food industry uses specific, they call it artificial flavors. So why are we addicted to Taco Bell, right? Or why are we addicted to McDonald's fries? There's like certain flavorings, like they hire these artificial flavoring companies. Like it's a huge business, just like the pharmaceutical industry is a huge business. This flavoring company is a huge business.
Yep.
Right. And
Mhm.
so the Taco Bells of the world and the Whataburgers of the world and
Mhm.
the McDonald's of the world, they hire these companies, and that same hit. So that's what this neurologist or neuroscientist was saying, that same pleasure centers that we get kicked off by having drugs or alcohol is the same pleasure center when we eat these flavorings, like Taco Bell or French, like McDonald's. Everybody's crazy about McDonald's French fries, right? So they kick off the same pleasure centers in the brain.
Yeah.
So if you were to bring, so what Eckhart's guidance, I think during the New Earth webcast with Oprah Winfrey, when Eckhart was asked about this, right? Like somebody said the same thing. I have overcome the addiction to smoking, but I didn't overcome the addiction to drinking. What should I do? So what Eckhart says is, when you get that urge, right, that I need to have another drink, he says, wait and take what exactly April said, almost something similar, right? Wait, take a few breaths and wait. Yeah, maybe you give in to the urge, you go get that drink, but that waiting, try to elongate that waiting. And somehow I think that waiting will finally kick in gear where you say, okay, you make the decision, no, I really don't need it in that waiting. Is that right, April? Did you say, no, no, I know I'm feeding this, but that requires presence power, right, April, a certain level of awareness.
So it does, yeah, it does require that. So you can make yourself wait. Usually we also, if it's drugs, we suggest that you reach out and talk to somebody. Maybe you call somebody or you go to someone. This is also where they have meetings like Alcoholic Anonymous, that kind of thing. So you can wait, you can take a breath, you can go meditate. One of the big things to do also is to break, like Dr. Joe says, which is to break your pattern. So I usually will ask a client, when do you find that you're using, or when do you find that you're eating this? Is there a certain time of the day that you're doing this? And usually what we will find is a pattern. So they will eat every day at 2 o'clock or every evening at 7 p.m. So then what we ask for you to do is to put something in place at that time. So that would be meditation time, or that would be watching Joe Dispenza video time, or that would be going for a walk. So you break the pattern because we're so habitual as humans. So like if you walk in every day and you go to your fridge to get a drink, and then you grab a snack, the next day then you walk in, but you don't allow yourself to go to the fridge because you're restarting that same pattern, which is where the habit is, which is where the addiction is. So now instead, I'm going to go over here, is what we suggest that you do. Am I making sense?
Beautiful. Thank you. Anything else, Lakshmi, come up for you?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Absolutely grateful for the insight. Patricia, you want to talk about medical medium, talking about heavy metals?
Yes, that is true. So we have from different angles, we can look at addiction. I really like Dr. Joe's explanation about, because it kind of talks a little bit about what April was talking about as well, that we get addicted, like our body is just producing chemicals, and for everything we need, hormones, and they make the information, and we get addicted to them. And so the way I understand it from Dr. Joe, that when we are kids and our brain waves, we don't have very developed the critical part of the brain. So everything, it's like live in a state of hypnosis. Almost everything that we are fed from the visual, physical words, our communities, our families, that they feed us as kids, we just take in completely, not even thinking that there might be not good and whatever. So I think that's where the source of a lot of so-called family passed on addiction is, because we just integrate everything that we see, and we don't know that it is good or bad. It's just we think that's the way, and then it's creating certain beliefs. Even you wrote a book about it, the limiting beliefs that we are not even aware because they're programmed in our subconscious mind. And then as adults, we just repeat them because, beliefs create the behaviors, and that creates personalities, and then we just repeat it. That's what we are. It's just like we are habitual machines. So if part of that habit becomes addiction, it's tough, because it's not only mental, but it's also chemical. But mental creates chemicals because every thought creates chemicals. Like we just constantly produce stuff in our bodies. So I guess it's pretty much the same thing. It's just maybe a different trigger. So we become addicted to, like Dr. Joe said, the life we don't even like. Like, who wants to feel bad and have to eat all the time and feel bad and get sick? Or who wants to drink alcohol? It's not good for you. It's destroying your inner organ, your brain, your liver, and it's just self-destructive. So nobody really wants to be addicted to anything, and yet we do it. It's such a challenge to overcome, to be conscious, but maybe it can also be the very thing that will help us get conscious, because we get to the point that we are just done. We're done with our addiction. We don't want to live that way. And that becomes the very portal that helps us, frees us from itself. It's kind of like that. And I think my addiction, I feel that my addiction was the adrenals. Because I grew up in a household that was constant in a stress, constant fear, criticism. So that hits of adrenals, I needed, like, my whole body felt alive. You know, when my father yelled at me or he hit me or I was scared because it's like I had the whole body reaction. And then in my adult life, I started recreating it because that was what I knew. And that's what made me feel alive and got this energy, because normally I was also very slow and depleted. So it kind of got me this hit. So I did try with, being with my friends and young adult. Everybody smoked then, so I picked up cigarettes, but I could never really get addicted to cigarettes or alcohol, because after a couple of cigarettes, I felt very nauseous or bad. When I drank one beer, it was enough for me, because my body was so already full of toxins from the adrenals that any actual food or substance addiction was too much. So my body's like, no. It's like, so I always thought, oh, it's great. I don't have addictive personality, but only recently I realized that my addiction was really to the adrenals, to the adrenaline, because of how very deeply in my childhood that stress hormone, the cortisol and adrenals, and that's why I have a lot of issues, physical issues, because of that addiction. So I needed to find a way, which with the group, I found meditation, huge help, but also certain foods I stopped cold turkey, eating meat, and the whole list that medical medium shows that you need to stop in order to help your body heal and remove the heavy toxins. And my toxins were in my brain too, the anxiety. So I followed both. I followed medical medium as far as the physical part of it, and as well as meditation. So it's more of an energy clearing. And I'm still here and there falling sometimes back into certain thoughts. But thanks to the practice, I catch them very much faster. So, like April said, in the moment when I feel that I'm falling and I regain my presence power of the breath, I do something that Dr. Joe suggests. Meditate, sit in it, instead of grabbing whatever, going for the stress. Because that was my addiction. And it fascinates me, though, that humans are so sensitive. No, it's not sensitive. So easily addicted. Like when you think about it, it's such a almost plague. So I was asked myself this question: if our body has such an inner wisdom, why is it letting us to get addicted to substances that's killing it? It's like it should be like, no, you don't need it. Like this is how powerful the brain is, because it would like do something against if we don't have consciously, if we're not consciously making decisions, like training that animal. So it's gonna take us in a self-destruction eventually. That's the addiction. So I don't know if April has something to say about that. The knowledge, why would such an amazing wisdom of body to heal itself would allow us to be addicted to something that is bad for you?
Thank you, Patricia. Before April speaks, I just wanted to explain a little bit of what you said. So the concept from medical medium is anxiety, depression, addiction all arise because of heavy metals in our body. And heavy metals in our body exist because of the industrial, it was not so like maybe 200 years ago. Now, because of the industrial revolution, because of all the toxins that are in our environment, like we don't even realize, like having a Glade plugin, like anything that says perfume or fragrance is heavy metal. We are absorbing heavy metal in our body. Just imagine eating with a metal spoon, eating with cooking in stainless steel containers, right? I had to change my cooking dishes to ceramic, having a ceramic coating ever since I started the medical medium protocol, just to protect myself. Like you try to reduce the amount of metals. Not only are we having the heavy metal detox smoothie almost every day or 3 or 4 times a week, we are also doing the other things that don't introduce metals, like fragrance in your laundry sheets, fragrance in your laundry detergent, fragrance in your whatever cleaning cleaning supplies, right? Any amount of fragrance, you're introducing metals into your body, exposing, especially if you have that Glade plug. So many people put plugins or air fresheners in their homes, right? Thinking, oh, my home needs to smell so good. They're actually introducing metals into their body by smelling that fragrance throughout the day. And if you're sitting next to, and this is one thing I love in Dr. Joe's events, they actually tell people not to put on perfumes. Some people do, but most of the people don't put on perfumes at all, right? And that's the thing. I used to use perfume every day. I stopped using perfumes. I make sure my laundry detergent has no this thing.
Exactly.
The same thing with the insecticides, whatever, like lawn, for your lawn. What do they call it?
Yeah, there are
Herbicides.
pesticides.
Pesticides that are put
Herbicides. Yeah.
herbicides and pesticides outside are also heavy metals. So when we go outside and our neighbor's lawn would have done not natural treatment, but put some pesticides and herbicides, then we are exposing ourselves to metals. So that's how we've been exposed. And now this person has like a certain imbalance of so much metals in their body that it leads to addiction or leads to depression or leads to anxiety. So with that,
Because electric current cannot go through the metals, block electric current from the neurons to go from one to the other, so the brain cannot communicate. Pretty fascinating. And heavy metals in other organs, it's just bacteria and viruses are feeding off of it, and then they're actually pooping their waste into our blood, so we get just become sicker and sicker.
Go ahead, April. If you want to answer Patricia's question, and then we can close. We're almost at
Yeah,
the hour. Thank you.
Actually, I have asked that same question many, many times. Many times. I'm like, why do we get addicted so easily? I'm sure there is an answer somewhere out there in the scientific community as to why. Um, but I don't know exactly. I do think it's I so we could say that perhaps, we're not connected to Mother Earth and we are not conscious and we're not aware and we are not one with Earth as we used to be. And then we can also say that our food definitely 100% is not right. But I still think that even with all of that, that this body, and it's not just this body again, because we can take rats and guinea pigs and other mammals and we can make addicts very easily. So it's something about this type of body um, that does it. And I don't know the actual like scientific answer. I wish I did. Maybe I should look it up.
It's because it's pretty genius, powerful. We always talk how powerful human body is, what a miracle it is, but it's also so fragile.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, it
it's
is.
a paradox.
Yeah. So I don't know that it's like, why would they allow this? I just think that it does have something to do with the design of it. And when you said that, one of the things that came to me was, as above, so below. So there is always this fine line of delicacy that exists, right? There's always this balance. And I do agree with you guys and Poonam that we as humans, we have been off balance for a long time. And that does contribute to us not feeling good and seeking. So what we're doing is we're seeking something to fix how we're feeling instead of being connected to our emotions and to ourself and learning. That's one of the reasons why I really like Eckhart, because if you want to learn how to deal with your emotions, listen to Eckhart. That's one of the reasons I really liked him, because we are constantly trying to run from those emotions, but they're inside your body, so you can't run from them, because as you run, they go with you. But we use these things to try to get away from those emotions, when really we need to learn to just be with them. It doesn't mean they're always fun or they always feel good, but being with them and learning that they will pass and they will move. Practicing acceptance is a huge thing, not fighting the present moment. Remembering gratitude, that's very huge. So, and then always, of course, you have to learn to love yourself unconditionally.
I can
What
say,
also
I can say for myself, Patricia, if I do a self-observation, right? It is the fundamental reason why we get addicted is that sense of lacking incompleteness. If I had this level of presence power 30, 40 years back, right? My tendency, so because I was just like April was saying, right? I was seeking approval. I would, one thing, like I would buy expensive, the same thing that Eckhart says, right? Don't live life through comparison where you're putting on designer clothes and you're making yourself feel better. So I would like try and buy expensive clothes, or I would dress my son up in expensive, like I would buy Polo and Tommy Hilfiger clothes for a baby. Like he's a 8-month-old baby, 12-month-old baby. Somebody finally at my workplace told me, wait until he turns a teenager, stop buying, go to Target, go buy, Target has good enough quality, go to Target, go buy, he's going to grow out of those clothes within 3 or 4 months anyway. Why are you buying polo shoes and clothes? Because they must have seen a picture of him or something, right? And I would buy expensive, that's like, that addiction is the whole sense of lack and incompleteness. And let me show you how well I'm taking care of this baby. I can see my sponsoring thought behind why I'm dressing this kid in expensive clothes, right? The same reason why people have Mercedes, the same reason why people, it's that lacking incompleteness, we're seeking approval. If he can fix, and this is what April used to teach in her workshops on self-worth, right? If I felt worthy, why would I want to? And now I'm at that stage where I live like a hermit. I have like 2 handbags that are tattered and they're like almost falling apart, but I still keep using the same because they hold the things. I'm like okay with it. I don't go buy Coach or whatever, Louis Vuitton or whatever other people are, Burberry or whatever everybody else is buying, right? I just have like standard handbags that I just go buy. And I just have 2 of them. One is in the closet. I just exchange those 2, like just to have that variety. The same thing with shoes. I don't have like 100 pairs of shoes. I have like 4 or 5 pairs of shoes that I rotate in and out, and they last a long time as well. I buy good shoes. I go to Clark and buy good shoes, but they last quite a few years. It's not like every year I'm buying another 2 or 3, or every 2 months. But if you were to look at my old self, I would try and be dressed well, buy shoes, right? So, okay, if that went away, then that addiction went into food, right? Eating good food. Now I cannot buy anything else, but at least I can buy, food is cheap here in the US, right? Let me buy food and eat food. So the addiction just moves until enough awareness grows, enough presence power. Once we have the presence power, and our power comes from, what Dr. Joe Dispenza says, the joy of existence, the joy of life exists, right? In that selfless giving. Ever since I've started this group, ever since I've started Eckhart's teachings, right? That selfless giving, I started this group in year 2016, so it has been 8 years, right? That giving becomes the dopamine hit. And April, what I would say, the best dopamine hit is selfless giving. The best dopamine hit. If you can do something for somebody else constantly every day, right? Even Carolyn Mace in her evening meditation says, it may not even be anything else other than you just smiled at somebody and you made their day, right? You just said good morning to somebody, and the way you said good morning made their day, right? That is also selfless. The selfless giving doesn't have to be, oh, I need to go to the North Texas Food Bank and go spend my whole day serving others. Or I need to go somewhere else. And that is not selfless giving. That's like, again, attachment. That's another egoic wanting. That, oh, I'm going to volunteer somewhere and people are going to think how great I am because I'm sitting and volunteering somewhere. That's not selfless giving. Selfless giving is you have no agenda. You have renounced the fruit of the action, right? You offered the action as a selfless sacrifice. And like for me, it was joining some Eckhart groups and just responding to somebody. And if that shifted their a little bit of their perspective, right? Because that's all human beings need, is a shift in perspective. If they looked at life, looked at your posts, and with that, they shifted their perspective. In that, I used to get a lot of the dopamine hit. Right? I would I would be happy that I shifted their perspective, and that started the whole selfless giving. Okay, let me create that. Made me go towards, okay, let me create a group that'll gather people that are based on Eckhart's teachings. Then the group changed 2 or 3 years. 2019, I got together with Parker and I was like, what more can I do for this group? Let me do more. Let me create videos, video teachings. Let me create group meditation. Every year we ask each other, right? What more can we do for this group? We've been doing workshops this year. I've been really, really busy at work. I've been working weekends, so I couldn't do the workshops. If not, we would have had 2 or 3 workshops this year as well, right? So it's like, what more can we do for this group so that it changes, it shifts? You know, Dr. Joe says the word people changing people. It's just people changing, normal people changing people. It doesn't have to be a huge Sadhguru or Rupert Spira or somebody else. It's Lakshmi saying something, it shifts, right? That, oh, I'm going to that fridge because I want to fulfill some guilt. It's Patricia changing, it's April saying something, and immediately something clicks and you don't do it anymore. That's all we need, right? Anything else you want to talk about? Good.
I
Good.
just want to say that for me, the also Rupert Spira's, this one pointer, I found myself, if I start to going back into my all addiction, identification of victim identity, that's also say, on whose behalf are you feeling that? And that brings me like, exactly, that I'm really the awareness, like Eckhart says, behind it. So this is my life situation, my identification stuff, my ego, or just ego condition, but on whose behalf I am feeling, and then brings me right into the present moment. That sweet spot of generous
Beautiful.
present moment.
Awesome. Thank you, Patricia. And we will meet
you.
in 2 weeks, which will be right before Thanksgiving. I'm hoping, April, you're available. You'll stop your cooking for a little bit, talk to us, and then go cook. At least stay with us for a half hour, 45 minutes, and then you can go cook your Thanksgiving meal. I know you want to do a huge thing for a huge spread for your family. So please do join us. We meet on Wednesday, right before Thanksgiving. So have a fantastic couple of weeks. Many blessings. Eternally grateful to all of
Thank
you
you.
for choosing your divinity over your humanity. Bye. Good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Much love.